Hello friends, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Elise, and this is my mystical, spooky bookshelf. And today I have for you Uncharmed by Lucy Jane Wood, the book that I promised would be in this week's video. I just finished it last week, and it was really, really, really good. I love Lucy Jane Wood, and I also finished rereading Rewitched last week too, so I will probably do my review on that next week. And I didn't actually read it. I listened to both of them with my Audible credits, and they were really good. I love Lucy Jane Wood. She's a really great author, and Uncharmed is probably just as good, if not better, than Rewitched. So if you didn't like Rewitched a lot, I think you would like Uncharmed better, because it is a very, very good book. It is about Annie, and Annie is a perfectionist and a people pleaser, and that is like two traits that I myself relate to. And Annie tries to always make everybody happy but not make herself happy. I think this book is kind of about toxic positivity and how that can affect a person and how that can affect their life and the repercussions of that. And it's sort of like Annie is this really beautiful bubblegum pop type of girl. She reminds me of Glinda from Wicked, and she's not like her style reminds me of Glinda, but she herself is super genuinely nice, and she's just always trying her hardest to have people love her and accept her, and she wants to be people's go-to girl, and that's kind of a toxic thing for a woman to try to aspire to. And I will admit, when I was in college, I was sort of like Annie. I was always trying to be the optimistic person. I wanted to be everyone's go-to girl, and I wanted people to feel loved, and I wanted to make everybody super happy all the time. And I think as a result, it kind of leads to burnout. So Annie kind of gets burnt out. And I think the build-up for her burnout is perfect, because when you first start the book, you see that Annie's life is perfect, essentially. And you don't really understand why it's perfect until she does her nightly routine, which is basically a blood magic spell that takes everything out of her to make her perfect, which is very weird. And that was the part that kind of creeped me out a little bit, listening to her do this blood spell in the bath at she has to do it at midnight or before midnight, or else the spell won't work. And this spell is it's very high standards for a witch, or it is kind of portraying high standards for a woman in general, because this spell makes Annie look perfect, legitimately perfect. It makes her hair not have flyaways. It makes her skin look better. It makes her so she doesn't have to sleep. It makes it so her outfits are always perfect. It just makes her a perfect person, but it takes a toll on her, obviously, because it's blood magic, and I feel like that's kind of icky to think about in reality. You're giving up so much of yourself just to be perfect. And another caveat to this spell is that she has to hear these lamentations of spirits who have made regrettable choices in their life. So she constantly has those voices coming at her every night she does this ritual. So it's kind of like a heavy burden on her too. And it's just really interesting. And it's kind of sad to see how she's expected to be this perfect person. And the only reason that she does this is because her family has a poor image in this society that she wants to join. And it's like a society for witches, and they're really snobby and mean. And it's kind of like, they remind me of Mean Girls. Like, they're really annoying, and they act like they like Annie, but they don't really like Annie. And that was the part that really annoyed me the most in this book, is these 4 women who act like they're perfect, but they're really not, and they're very snobbish, and they act like see you next Tuesdays, if you catch my drift, because I don't want to say that word on YouTube. But yeah, so that's kind of like an iffy part in the book for me, because Annie doesn't really see it at first, because this blood magic spell also makes it so that she can think clearer, I guess, or like smooth over bad parts of people, when in reality the people that she's trying to impress are like the worst possible people. And we go through Annie's life with this blood magic spell, and I think like a quarter of the way through, she is put in charge of this young witch who is just coming into her powers. And this is where it reminds me of Wicked, especially because Maeve, that's the young witch's name, she doesn't really fit in very well with anybody. She's kind of weird. I mean, not really super weird. I mean, she's 15. She's like any normal 15-year-old girl. She's moody, she's angsty, she's kind of got this goth thing going on. And she's just trying to live her life and be normal, but nobody likes her. And she gets really frustrated a lot, which is something that I can identify with. And I really liked Maeve. She was very snarky and cute. And her and Annie's dynamic is really adorable. So Annie's put in charge of Maeve, and she's this witch whose powers have come into her, and they're kind of uncontrollable, especially when she gets angry, which is understandable. So like when she gets angry, she has like these spurts of magic that she can't control, and the coven wants Annie to help Maeve like control it, I guess. And one caveat with this book, I read on social media that Uncharmed takes place before Rewitched. So if you read Rewitched first and then you read this book, you'll see that the Gowden sisters are still a very prominent character in the universe, because the events that happened in Rewitched haven't happened yet. So it's kind of, that confused me. I mean, it would have confused me, I guess, but since I read that, it kind of made more sense. So we kind of go through Maeve and Annie's routine together. They go and live in this cottage in like the woods in United Kingdom. And it's like this remote cottage, like nobody knows where it is, and it's supposedly not belonging to anyone, but that kind of gets thrown out the window when we meet Hal, who is this male warlock, who is Annie's love interest, obviously. And he is like really surprised that they're there. And he's like, "What are you doing here? Why are you in my house?" He's really confused, and I totally feel for him. And Annie has like made this house like what you would think Glinda would make the house look like, pretty and pink and girly and glittery, and Hal is just not having it. And she explains to him that they need to stay here to like help Maeve with her magic. And I feel like Maeve kind of reminds me of Elphaba. That's kind of like Elphaba and Glinda's friendship. That's kind of what Maeve and Annie remind me of, because they're both polar opposites, but they both really like each other. They love each other. Their sisterly bond really grows throughout the book, and it's more like, it sort of goes between being sisters and then being like mother-daughter towards the end, because Annie calls Maeve her girl, and it just really shows Annie's maternal potential. And I really love that. It really made my heart melt how she called Maeve her girl, because it was so cute. And Annie is 32, so I guess it would be real. I mean, it could be realistic that she'd be her mom. if she had her at like a super young age. But it's super sweet. I love the dynamics between Annie and Maeve and Hal. They kind of act like a little family as the book goes on, but once they get to this cottage, that's kind of when Annie's blood magic ritual goes out the window. And it's like, I can't remember how far into the book I was when it happened, but it's sort of like she just, like, all the magic around her just collapses, and Annie kind of has to come to terms with how she really looks. Like, she's not perfect anymore. Like, it's kind of sad, because at first she's like, oh my gosh, I'm old and I'm ugly. And it's like, girl, you're only 32. Like, seriously, I'm 29. Like, calm down, calm down. We don't need to be calling, like, each other decrepit or anything, because we're totally not. We are young women still. We need to drill that into people's heads. But, like, yeah, so Annie starts noticing she has bags under her eyes because she barely sleeps because of the magic. And then her hair is not perfect anymore. And she notices her skin doesn't look as nice and glowy. So she really has to come to terms with not being perfect anymore. And I think it just really shows, like, beauty standards for women too, and how they're, like, outrageous. Like, so outrageous in this world that someone has to do blood magic in order to achieve them. And I'm like, are we okay? I don't think so. I think we need to step back and realize that it's not realistic for women to always look perfect. It's not realistic to always be perfect. And that's kind of what Annie learns. And it's really beautiful to see her go from this type A control freak who wants everything perfect. And then in the end, she just sort of lets everything go and is like, I am okay with being me. I'm okay with being imperfect. And she also runs this bakery called Celestial something. And she has to let that go too, because she bakes magic into her treats. And that's part of her people pleasing, and it helps people feel better. But in the end, Annie learns that she needs to look out for herself. And she ends up living with Hal and Maeve in this little cottage remotely. And she's not worried about being perfect anymore in the end. She lets the bakery go. She lets it go to her friends who have wanted to help her run it this whole time. And she lets go of the society and the mean girls. And her and Maeve and Hal kind of just live as this unit, like a mom, a dad, and a daughter. And it's just really sweet to see that in the end, the only thing Annie really wanted was family and love and acceptance. And it's just really beautiful. This book was perfect. I love Lucy Jane's writing. She's a really beautiful writer. It made me want, like, baked goods. Like, listening to this story, I was like, man, I want a good, like, cookie or something, or a good muffin from a bakery. Like, that's how it made me feel. Like, it made me feel warm and fuzzy, and the ending kind of made me cry a little bit. And I was at work, so it's like, people need to understand that I'm listening to some emotional stuff over here. But I think overall, Uncharmed was way better than Rewitched, because I like Annie more as a character. I feel like I identified with her more, but there are also parts that I identify with Belle, but I'll get into that next week when I give you my thoughts on that. But I was in love with this book. I'm in love with the cover. I love how Annie looks. I'm gonna try and customize a doll to look like Annie, because I think that would be perfect. I just love her personality, and I love how she kept her sparkly girliness even though she wasn't perfect or didn't want to be perfect anymore, because it's really about just accepting yourself and accepting your flaws and understanding that you don't have to be perfect. And I really like that message in the book. And I love the message of, like, accepting your flaws and understanding that you don't have to look perfect all the time. Like, you can be a real person and have real flaws, and it's just really amazing. I feel like a lot of women should read this book, and they should really take it to heart, because you don't have to wear certain clothes to look pretty. You don't have to wear a certain type of makeup to look pretty. You can wear whatever you want, and you can be whoever you want, and you don't have to be perfect. And overall, that's a long-winded way of me saying I give this book 5 stars. I think I gave Rewitched like 4, so Uncharmed is better by a whole star. So I would totally recommend reading this, and it's perfect for this time of year. It's very cozy, and the love between Hal and Annie is also really nice. It's a very slow burn. It's so wholesome. This whole book is very wholesome. The family dynamics are very wholesome, and I love that Hal and Annie kind of just take Maeve and accept her as their daughter, basically. It's just really beautiful. And if you enjoy Lucy Jane Wood, you're going to enjoy this second book from her. And she has staunchly become my favorite author, and I can't wait to see what she does next. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that. So please like and subscribe if you want more content from me. And I'm going to try and do like different stuff in between books. So I might do movies versus books. That might be my next thing that I'm going to try and do. But yeah, thank you for your support. And I just appreciate all of you. I appreciate your comments and your likes. And just thank you. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.